Good to see
Greetings to everybody here joining us today for the September Innovation Speaker Series. My name is Ashley Anthony. I am the Education and Engagement Manager at Climate Reality Project and the chair of the Atlantic Canada Climate Network. The ACCN, or the Atlantic Canada Climate Network, is proud to co-present this event with the Canadian Environmental Network. We have come together for this project to showcase cutting-edge emergent technologies and their potential to advance climate solutions and create new opportunities. Before I begin, I would first like to respectfully acknowledge and recognize the relationship that First Nation, Inuit, and Métis across Canada have with this very beautiful land that all Canadians live on and enjoy. We are full of gratitude and would deeply like to recognize that the ACCN operates on the traditional unceded territory where I am here of the Mi'kmaq, Wolastoqiyik, Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, and Abenaki nations, or the Wabanaki Confederacy, as well as Innu and Inuit peoples. Um, this territory here, beautiful and gracious, is covered by treaties of peace and friendship, which these nations first signed with the British Crown in 1726. Now, these treaties in particular did not deal with the surrender of land and resources, but were in fact established as the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. So it's in this spirit of peace and friendship that I greet you all today. And it also reminds us of the wonderful 634 different First Nation communities, the beautiful 53 Inuit communities, and incredible 8 Métis settlements that have their unique historical, environmental, and important spiritual and cultural and sustainable connection to the land that their people and ancestors have inhabited since time immemorial. We also encourage all Canadians and visitors to these lands to learn about and regularly acknowledge the historic and current relationships that exist between the unceded lands on which we live and enjoy and work and prosper, and the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. We also encourage all Canadians to consider how they can personally contribute to Canada's reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. Now, again, the Innovation Speaker Series here, which brings us all together today, aims to foster collaboration and knowledge exchange amongst diverse stakeholders passionate about addressing climate. And so today we have the incredible pleasure of welcoming Stan Knight. Stan is a proud member of the Opaskwayak Nation, the Cree Nation, of over 30 years. He has experience in First Nations housing, infrastructure, and community development. He draws from a rich background as a former RCMP officer, a home inspector, and an insurance adjuster. Stan founded Zachary Knight Enterprises to deliver housing solutions grounded in Indigenous knowledge and leadership. And for this, we are so grateful for Stan being here and for ZKE as they champion the principles for Indigenous by Indigenous, offering capacity building services that uplift communities through strategic project management, asset planning, and housing innovation. Its flagship program, which we're going to learn about today, Inspector in a Box, reflects Stan's commitment to empowerment through
All
these
right.
practical tools and trainings. We ask that everybody mute themselves, but make sure that you bring in your best questions into the chat. We'll be moderating, and there'll be an opportunity for question and answer at the end of this. I'm very excited to pass it over to Stan to talk more about this wonderful and transforming initiative and how First Nations tackle housing challenges, placing autonomy, safety, and sustainability at the heart of every initiative. Stan, please.
Jeez, wow. I was going to do a land acknowledgement, but we kind of covered every space in Canada with that rather extensive acknowledgement. So thank you so much, Ashley. I appreciate that. So in terms of land acknowledgements, I think I'll just kind of cut to the chase and say it. I just want to extend my respect and gratitude to all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit across Canada. Their enduring connection to the land, culture, and community serves as a foundation for reconciliation and a path toward meaningful partnerships and understanding. May we continue to honor their contributions, protect their rights, and work collaboratively to build a more inclusive and respectful future for all Indigenous people across Canada. Well, thanks for joining. And I want to talk about our Inspector in the Box initiative and kind of highlight what it does and what the real reason for why we're doing this work. Just as a backgrounder, like there's a lot of revenue going towards new construction and modular units and trying to address that housing shortage. But we are trying really hard to change that conversation to include renovation and repair, because if we don't fix our existing homes that we have now, then they just become another statistic for a new house that's needed. But if we can fix homes right now, that opens a 15-year window where proper um, research and innovation can be looked at in terms of what a new housing model should look like with climate resiliency at its forefront. So we want to change that focus and say, hey, let's fix what we have now and look at the future. So, um, So question is, who are we? This is my buddy. I'm affectionately called Fry Bread Fred. So this is my mascot, and this is going to be hopefully one day I'll have him animated through AI, and he can do presentations on my behalf. So hope fingers crossed. So just as a backgrounder, I am a member of Paskrat Cree Nation in Nepal, Manitoba. I've been a police officer, building supply manager, home inspector, insurance adjuster. Currently, I'm a certified master inspector for residential commercial units. I'm a level 3 insurance adjuster, level 2 Xactimate estimator, Hague certified residential roof inspector, a certified drone pilot operator, and I'm currently working towards my PMP certification through Simon Fraser University. So people ask how our Inspector in the Box works. And so it's just kind of broken down into like when a community reaches out and say, hey, we'd like to launch Inspector in the Box in our community, what do we need to do? So we have an initial meeting to identify what the needs are of the community and how we can fit and what kind of other resources we can bring in, because we don't just do the inspections. We want to bring in a more fulsome response to renovation repair, and that looks at energy rebate programming to offset those renovation costs, as well as like mold remediation and energy work, and just all aspects that we can bring in to provide a proper answer as to how do we fix these houses and how do we maintain them. So part of maintaining houses is a proper asset management program. So with asset management, you basically set the valuation of the property and you do predictive maintenance through set periods of time. And that's kind of what we help people understand is it's not just fixing the home, but it's actually doing the proper maintenance and understanding what those maintenance costs are going to be down the road. Because if we don't plan for them, then they're a surprise and we can't afford them. So after we do our initial consultation, we send out the equipment to the tools that we use to do all our data collection and inspection process. We train the selected candidates on the tool use, as well as understanding to start the process of a home inspection. In the short interim, we made the program so that it addresses two issues. One is the long-term training aspect of a home inspector, because we don't expect somebody to become a home inspector in 3 months. It's just not feasible. But we kind of gear it for over the course of a year. We support them and mentor them to become more fulsome in their knowledge. But in the short term, within the first 3-month period, we set it up so we collect the data and we produce the inspection report, scopes of work, Class B cost estimates, so we can actually do funding applications and start the process of getting homes repaired. So it kind of addresses the nation's needs as well as the candidates' needs, because they're two different timelines that they have to operate within. So we train the selected candidate, the data is collected, meaning the home inspections are completed. We review the data comes back to us, and we actually interpret the data and we produce the reporting that's needed for a proper home inspection report, scopes of work, cost estimates, and so forth. So once that's done, the units are selected by the community as which units they want to do funding applications to do repairs, and then we do that part. We actually complete the funding applications as well. We have a team that'll do these funding applications and hopefully get the funds to start the repairs. Candidate obtains their home inspection certification. So now that they're actually legally certified to do home inspections across Canada, so which provides a real viable revenue pathway for this candidate to succeed and stay within the skill set, so they build their knowledge, right? Because there's a lot of one-off training programs where somebody can train to be an IT tech for 3 months, but there's no viable employment options for them once they complete the course. What we want to do is we want to provide that viable employment option. So if they're not employed by the band, then there's other avenues for them to do home inspections and do that work and bring in revenue, but still stay within the community and still provide the support to that community. The final step is developing the franchise option, where if a person stays within the community and stays employed by the nation, then there's no need for a franchise because that person stays there and does that work, right? But if they say, yeah, you know what, the nation can't employ me full time. I want to look at a franchise option. I want to become a business, and so this is where we take them through the franchise option and help them become and grow that business and still provide that support to the community. So yeah, that's kind of the circle. And then we go back to consultations and then we see what else we need to do. Maybe we need to build out infrastructure development programs for the future. And part of our role is we don't want to be involved in project management or infrastructure development, but we are sourcing strategic partnerships all across Canada. So that way, the big thing is we always say is like, I can't do it, but I know somebody that can, and we can put you in touch and we can put you in touch with people that are doing this work for the right reasons, that are in this space for the right reasons, and they're not just there to line their pockets and get the hell out of Dodge. It's there to actually promote and support the economic development of the communities that they're working in. So what is our tools contain? So my smartphone is preloaded with inspection software and apps that we use. We use a drone, micro USB card for video capture, thermal camera attachment that just plugs into your iPhone and turns it into a thermal camera, so you can see moisture behind walls and see heat loss, and it's a great tool. Flashlights, measuring tools, moisture meters. So moisture meters to help you see if you identify a different coloration variation in the wall space or on the floor space, then you can use a moisture meter to confirm if it's actually moisture or if it's just cold air. So tech tools for inspection. So we use the smartphone-based inspection tools for quick, accessible evaluations. We use drones for visual inspections and aerial mapping of lands and rooftops. The great thing with the drone is it actually can give you a snapshot of the entire property, and you can see where water is draining in your property, and you can see problem areas, and you can address it through landscaping so that the water is drained away from the property. Because water is by far and large the biggest cause of issues for maintenance in a property. If the water is moved away from your building and addressed properly, then it reduces so much of the issues that we face with mold issues and structural integrity and leaks and stuff like that. We also use thermal cameras detecting heat leaks and moisture meters for structural assessments. And then in terms of the apps that we use, like we use a program called Hover. Hover is like, all of these programs are commercially available, so we don't try to gatekeep this information. We share it freely. Like if a nation looks at our offerings and says, you know what, we're perfectly able to do 50% of this work, and with the use of these apps and programs that you have, we could probably do the other 50% and be self-sufficient. And I'm like, go ahead. Here's what's available. Feel free to share, feel free to use them as you want, because they're out there commercially available for everybody to use. Hover is a great program because with Hover, it's a subscription-based app, so you pay just per use. But in terms of the cost, you can take 8 photos from around the perimeter of a building, and Hover will actually give you all the rough opening measurements for your windows and doors. It'll give you all your siding measurements. It'll give you all your roof measurements. So it's a very powerful tool, and it gives you in a PDF report that you can just share. Like with a lot of window companies, what we do is we actually take the Hover report, send it to the window company, say, hey, can you give us a quote for the cost of these windows? And with the Hover accuracy, which is plus or minus an inch, like I field tested it over 40 houses. The pricing is bang on. And then the only thing we do is we ensure that the company that's providing the quotes makes the agreement that they come out and do the final measures to ensure that their sizing and everything else is accurate. Like window operations, which way the window opens, and that, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of the big thing, is it reduces the cost for one company to come out and measure a set of windows and go back, where you can have them quote the price, and then when you select the proper candidate, they can come out and measure 10 sets of windows. So that way, it's more economical and feasible for them to actually be involved in the process, right? Cubicast is another one. It's a great LiDAR scanning tool for mapping floor plans. So you can actually walk throughout a house while the camera is rolling, and you don't have to stop or take pictures, nothing. It's just a live video, and then it just maps the entire house, and it gives you accurate floor plans. It'll actually map out your entire cabinetry set. So it'll tell you where your uppers and lowers are and what sizes they are. And yeah, it's a great tool, and it's another subscription-based software. Currently, we use Home Inspector Pro, just the home inspection software, but there's just tons and tons out there that are available, and they're easy to program and easy to use. FLIR One is the thermal camera inspection tool, so it provides you the data capture to what your thermal inspection tool views. You can capture it as images and then include that into your reports just as PDFs or JPEGs. And then DJI Fly is the drone control operation, which allows you to capture all the video and download it into your inspection software. For providing scopes of work and cost estimating, we use a program called Xactimate. It's an industry-wide standard application for cost estimating that's used within the insurance industry all over Canada and US. And so, and a lot of building supply and construction companies use it as well. Remediation companies use it because it's all tied to the insurance industry. So it's a very understandable format and widely accepted. The great thing is it provides regional pricing. So if you're in Whitehorse and you have, if you want to do renovation repairs in the Whitehorse area, you can actually download the price list for what a 2x4 costs in Whitehorse or High Level or Edmonton or those areas. So it provides regional pricing, which is a great thing. And then you can just kind of figure out what the multipliers for remoteness in terms of travel and shipping and all those other extra costs. But it provides a Class B estimate as the final result, which is an industry's accepted standard for ISC and CMHC for their project management. So it's a great tool, and it allows you to prevent quote creep, which is a big problem with contractors, because a contractor might win you over with their first bid, but the second bid and third bid, and then after 5 years, if not properly checked, and if there's not proper checks and balances in place, that price can fluctuate. It can just slowly creep up, right? So in 5 years, you're paying 25% more, 30% more, who knows? But there has to be proper checks and balances to ensure that this pricing stays consistent given just market fluctuations, right? Asset Planner. This is a software that can be purchased and used to set up a proper asset management program. We don't use it, but we highlight it because it is kind of the future of asset management, because asset management not only allows you to set a valuation for a property, But it also allows you to do the predictive maintenance forecasting for what, like, say you build 30 brand new units. Well, in 10 years, you have to predict for the replacement of all the washers, dryers, fridge, and stoves, because that's the normal life cycle. The 15 years for the hot water tanks, the 25 years for your furnaces, for your siding, all these other items. And a proper asset management program will help you understand, okay, in 5 years, you're going to have this huge cost. How can you properly plan for it? And that's the basis of asset management, and that's why it's so important. Right now, we can collect the data and export it into a CSV model for you for like an Excel spreadsheet. But we highly recommend adoption of like Asset Planner or some other asset software, which kind of helps you manage your infrastructure properly and allows you to predict what those costs are going to be in the future. The other part of asset management is, like, for years and years, we've gone to the federal government and says, hey, we need money to do renovations, repairs, and maintenance. And they've always said, well, how much do you need? We give them a number and they say, prove it. Well, asset management is that ability to prove it. We can export it into an Excel spreadsheet and we can send it to the funders and say, okay, this is what our costs are going to be for the next 25 years. And now it's up to you to rebut that information. But here's what we can show you as a real world dollar figure. And that is so powerful because the federal government is all about the data, right? If you have the data, you have that funding because you can argue for it. And that's the biggest thing, because a lot of times we go to the table with no data to prove our requests. So the home inspection course, we use Carson Dunlop Home Inspection Certification Program. Carson Dunlop is nationally recognized. It's actually internationally recognized as well in the US as well. So one of the interesting things about our idea about certification for home inspectors is because we use Carson Dunlop and because the J Treaty actually exists for Indigenous peoples within North America. We can actually, we haven't tested it yet, but we've talked to several lawyers that are very knowledgeable in this aspect. Um, at present, like, we can actually take a home inspector, a person that's a certified home inspector in Canada, and actually have them set up shop in the US as a certified home inspector, and they meet all the requirements. So it's something for future expansion into our company idea and the franchise model. But we'd like to be able to expand into the US as well, because the issues with poor quality housing is not unique to Canada, unfortunately, and it's widespread all over Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand. We've had lots of conversations with different organizations representing different countries, and it's very consistent everywhere. So, in terms of timelines, so the initial 0 to 3 months, so like inspector in a box, we train a candidate, we supply tools, candidate learns the tools, learns the inspection process, starts the Carson Dunlop program. The inspections gets completed for them. We start providing safer homes, youth employment, because our program is specifically target youth, because we want that candidate to be the 20 to 39 age range, because our training method and our whole methodology is based on technology. So we want to engage youth that have that intuitive connection to technology, because, like, the old saying is, you give a 50-year-old carpenter a smartphone, they make a phone call. But you give a 20-year-old kid a smartphone, and all of a sudden they're banking, they're downloading apps, they're learning, they're doing all sorts of things with the smartphone. And it's that intuitive connection with that technology, because they grew up in that environment, that they understand technology a lot better than us older guys. So, and that's kind of what we're trying to say is, with the inspection process, the current standard is that usually a home inspector that's like 45, 50 years old, because they've spent 25 years learning carpentry and understanding the building process. What we're trying to show is that with technology, we can actually compress that time frame and bring a person up to that knowledge base faster using technology and understanding the basic core ideas of inspections. And with the Carson Dunlop, the biggest primary thing with Carson Dunlop is it's deficiency recognition. So it shows you lots of pictures to say, okay, here's what's wrong. And then it shows you what's right. And then it makes you understand what that connection is. Under our 4 to 12 month time frame, like the inspector in the box is our ongoing training. We support the candidate. Candidate does all the inspections. They work for a nation, full-time employment, home inspection license if they're super fast. We give them up to a year, but we've had guys finish it in 3 weeks. The nation, so they seek renovation funding. We look at asset management, community satisfaction, because the biggest thing about communities is when you announce 2 new houses, a lot of community members say, well, who cares? Because it doesn't benefit me because I have a very small chance of getting a house. But if you announce 50 inspections and a new process where you're going to renovate all 50 homes within a 5-year period, it's more buy-in because they understand, oh, now I have a very real chance of seeing the benefits of that process. And that's kind of the biggest thing is we try to bring in that community satisfaction and engagement and understanding that, yeah, we are making a difference. And then, of course, reduced health issues because we believe so strongly that a safe, healthy home is a determinant, one of the biggest determinants of health and success. Like you can have a kid that you can have the biggest, most expensive school in the world. It could be millions of dollars and hire the biggest and brightest teachers all over Canada, have them teach at your school. But if a child is spending 18 hours a day surviving in their house, dealing with mold issues, freezing at night, sweltering during the day, like that school setting is not a learning setting for them. It's a reprieve. It's a respite from the fight that they're ongoing at home to survive. So if we fix those homes, make them safe and comfortable, then that child is primed to come to school and learn. And that's what we strongly believe in our process. So the 1 to 3 year mark, inspector in box becomes a franchiser. We support the candidate, and the whole idea with the franchise model is like we're not trying to build a business to own the home inspection realm. We kind of developed the franchise model to help support businesses so that like 1 to 3 year mark is where most businesses fail. And so we thought about the franchise model to help support that person and support them with our infrastructure so that they succeed as a business. And hopefully at the 3 year mark, we can approach them and say, hey, look, you got your own clients, you got your own revenue, you got your own business, hopefully you got your own employees. Maybe it's time to cut the cord and get the heck out of the house and become your own boss and survive on your own. And that's kind of what we want to see out of that model. Candidate becomes a certified home inspector, franchisee employs more nation members, works off reserve and works within the municipalities and geographical area and becomes a certified business. The nation, they see safer homes, energy efficient homes, reduced costs, quicker work, more employment, become a success story. Career progression. So, of course, Carson Dunlop Home Inspection Course, Canadian Association of Home and Property Inspectors, becomes a franchisee, uh, owner of inspection company in the long term. And then we're actually in the early stages of developing a learning pathway to become First Nation building officers as well, because that's the other aspect of inspections is the course of construction inspections through CMHC for code compliance and stuff like that. And that's kind of what we want to build as an opportunity because First Nation building officers, building officials, like they're few and far behind between right now. And a lot of them they're in their late 50s and 60s and they all want to retire. And that right now there's no pathway to train more. So we need to start that conversation so that in 5 years that we actually have that opportunity to bring in more First Nation building officials and ensure code compliance within the new construction industry. So who are the clients, and what kind of offerings can you do for those clients as an inspector in the box candidate? So with your home community, you can do home inspections, move out, move in inspections, maintenance workshops. Maintenance workshops is a big one because, like I said, Carson Dunlop teaches you deficiency recognition, so you understand what's wrong. And it has great pictures. Like it can show you like something that looks like a chia pet when it's supposed to be a furnace filter. Like those are the deficiencies you see, and you see a lot of them. Your surrounding areas, you can do home inspections, maintenance workshops, private clients, so you can realtors do home inspections, banks, BGIS, which is like the national property manager for PSAC and Treasury Branch. And so they look after all the RCMP buildings, Northern Health Centers, post offices, and they pay a pretty penny to have the condition assessments done on those properties across Canada every year, every 3 years. And like one example I know is they actually have a guy coming out of Winnipeg to go into Nunavut to do these inspections, and that guy charges $1,500 a day just to be on standby, and then he charged $5,000 just to be in community for a day. So our guys can do it for $1,000 and save everybody a bunch of money. Contractor work, so government Canada, provincial entities, lots of opportunities within different organizations to provide valuable revenue streams to keep you within that skill set. Cost breakdown for our program. It costs us about $5,000 to purchase the tools, get them all set up and ready to go to provide to the candidates. Home inspection course, $5,000. It's just basically a flow through cost because it's actually a little more than that now. Inspection and remote training. So we charge $30,000, and that $30,000 pays for 30 inspections. And with those inspections, you get all the full reporting, cost estimates, and everything else. So total is $40,000. Of course, different extras we can do, like we can set up asset management and all those other things, but those are just negotiated costs, just depending on how much is needed within those systems. Funding applications, we actually within that 40K, we actually set up, we do the funding application to actually pay for our program through CMHC or ISC or through different federal or provincial programs. So that cost is captured in the 40K, and the initial 5 to 10 renovation applications are included in that 40K as well. So after that, if we do like the following year and they want to do more funding applications, then we kind of just talk about the costs and figure out those costs, as well as on-site training. We really push to do this remotely because that's one of the biggest costs that are associated with with any training program is boots on the ground. It's so expensive to fly people in, accommodate them, feed them, and everything else. So we really push for a remote training program. But if the nation says, yeah, we'd rather have you, then yeah, we'll come down and do the training. We just agreed to a community to do 3 one-week training sessions over the course of the next 6 months with them, and it's feasible, and it's all what they feel comfortable with. Program funding options, of course, like ISK is Housing Support Program, CMHC Preservation Fund, Affordable Housing Fund, Indigenous Skills Training, provincial funding options like New Relationship Trust, Green Municipal Fund, FNIC with the new EARN funding, and other programs as they're announced. And that's it. There's the QR code to basically takes you to my website. Yeah, and hopefully that's the time.
Yeah, no, you did a wonderful job. Thank you so much, Stan. We have some questions coming in the chat. The first one is, do you train remotely or in person? I think you just addressed that one,
Yeah.
though. The next one is, are you a member of the Canadian Franchise Association?
No, not yet. We are building out that franchise model. We have an organization called Lighthouse that we're working with to complete all the regulatory frameworks for a franchise. One of the big things we need to understand with Indigenous housing is like for First Nations, they're the authority having jurisdiction. So you can actually set up a business within a First Nation community on First Nation land and not have to jump through all those hoops. It's only when you leave the First Nation land and start working with the municipalities that you have to have like that franchise certification, uh, the the home inspection certification and those processes. But we are building those out right now. And each province is different. Like it's like home inspection is kind of like the wild, wild west. Like in Manitoba, anybody can be a home inspector. You can have no training at all. You can just hang up a shingle that says I'm a home inspector, and yeah, you can start doing home inspections. And that's why errors and liability insurance is so expensive in Manitoba. Like when I was doing home inspections there, I was paying almost $7,000 a year just for errors and liability insurance. In BC, it's more regulated. There's a process to go to be certified. And so your errors and emissions are way cheaper, like under $2,000. So yeah.
Wow. I didn't know any of that. That's phenomenal. Thanks for sharing that, Stan. I was wondering if you could share with us some examples of projects and communities that you've worked with already or in process with.
Yeah, there's like right now we're up working with Luluku First Nation in Northwest Territories. We're setting up their housing program because one of the issues that we did find when we kind of spoke to different communities is um, they said, yeah, it's a great program, but we don't even have a housing manager. We don't even have a housing department. So we said, okay, well, why don't we come in? We'll help set that up and we'll identify the local candidate. We'll train that candidate and implement our inspector in a box process as we go along. And then the long-term vision is that now we have a local candidate that understands the cultural and history of the community. Because that's one of the things that we find is even myself as a First Nation from Manitoba, I understand the Cree culture because that's what I was raised in, but I don't understand the BC Indigenous cultures or Inuit or other cultures all across Canada. So I don't want to impose my understanding of what proper housing is for that community. We just want to go in and do the inspections and try to put that get that ball rolling towards renovations. So we're doing that with LKFN right now. We've just launched a home inspector training course in Nunavut for Indigenous women because we strongly believe that Indigenous women in the North are the primary caregivers, and a lot of times they're sole income providers for the community, for their families and extended families. So we're launching this program to show that yeah, home inspection business and a process is perfectly suited to that kind of lifestyle because it's a business that can fit around your life as opposed to your life having to fit around a business. With the program, we'll teach them how to be home inspectors. We do a 2 week intensive course in Iqaluit, and then we will support them in their home communities to do inspections and build that business. But like the best part of it is if you schedule a home inspection, you do one home inspection a day. You can schedule it for 6 p.m. at night. You can go do your home inspection, do your reporting in the evening when the kids are sleeping. You've earned over $500. You do that 10 times every 2 weeks. That's a $5,000 paycheck, and that's something that can help make a huge difference in terms of poverty and really prime you for success. So, and that's kind of the program that we're focusing on with that. Um, like I said, we just signed an agreement with another community in BC here, and those are the three that we're doing right now. I'm trying not to take any more because we're really stretched in terms of capacity. I'm hiring more people in the new year, but um, we have uh, about 6 other projects that we're going to be announcing in the new year, all across Canada with Northwest Territories, Yukon, Alberta, others in BC, and one in Manitoba, I think. So yeah. So
Thanks,
yeah, there's a
Stan.
lot of stuff going on.
Lots of stuff. And I think that there's a lot of people that feel like this program has a lot of validity and power. If they wanted to help spread the word and introduce this program to local First Nations or Indigenous communities near them, what would your advice be on how to do that?
Just share our LinkedIn posts. Like we're very active on LinkedIn. We do have a Facebook profile with our Inspector in a Box, as well as my personal Facebook. But a lot of it it's just word of mouth. Like we've been talking with different organizations and really trying to develop those strategic partnerships with different organizations because when we walk into a meeting, we're wearing our inspector in a box hat, and all of a sudden during the meeting, they're trying to fit us for six other hats to say, "Oh yeah, we need infrastructure, we need energy, we need all this other stuff," and we're like, "We can't do that." But hey, we know other people that can help you with that, and they're really good at what they're doing, and that's kind of the whole part of is we're trying to build the Indigenous economy because one of the big things we started seeing when we were developing this whole program is we started looking at the Indigenous economy in its whole and understanding like within the construction economy for new construction for houses and renovation, like there's $2 billion a year that goes into that system. Right now, 80 to 90% of that leaves in the pockets of consultants and contractors who have no vested interest in the economic development of those communities. So we looked at that and said, okay, how do we become a bigger part of that, and how do we play our part? And we looked at three avenues. One is education, one is business development, and the other one is capital investment. And so we're committed to providing a scholarship program in the coming year. We're in the midst of developing an Indigenous business incubator so that when we meet with communities and a person says, "Yeah, I want to be a plumbing company," well, we want to put them through the program and help them understand, okay, here's the steps you need to build your business and to stand up a business, understanding like banking and advertising and website development and legal liabilities and taxation issues with First Nation or off First Nation, those kind of issues, as well as capital investment. So we've committed a large portion of our revenue to standing up a capital investment program where we're actually going to be focused on lending money to stand up these businesses with our primary consideration being, do you have community support? If you're supported by the community, you're 99% more likely to succeed. We don't really, we're not tied to banks or equity investment because those entities come with that one all-powerful question: what's your credit score? Well, we don't care. We don't care about your credit score. We want to know if you have community support, and if you do, then you're more likely to get funded through our program.
This is beautiful. And I feel like you've saved such great pearls of wisdom for the last. Like we talked about, like this franchise growing into a business incubator. We talked about preparing your community for the future, this being an advocacy tool, an environmental tool, an education and youth empowerment tool. Um, this is important for communities to keep knowledge within the community and it contributes to community resilience. There is another conversation that you kind of had on LinkedIn that I'd like to loop in here of power versus representation and how this kind of all loops in. Can you talk to us a little about that essence of like why it's important to bring more skilled and trained First Nations professionals into the Canadian landscape, both as like, you know, knowledge holders, but also in the representation of people within the workforce. Like you said, the power that it has for a growing Indigenous body and holding that knowledge. Could you elaborate a little bit on that from your viewpoint?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues, like one of the biggest things that we see and what we're trying to bring to the forefront is the understanding that like when we talk about economic development within communities, like that economic development only works is if we're hiring Indigenous companies to keep that wealth within the community. Like I mentioned, there's $2 billion that goes into the system, and 89% of that leaves. So right now, there's 400 million that stays within the economy of the Indigenous community. Well, if we kept that 2 billion with the trickle down effect of economic development and respending of those dollars, like that's up to $6 billion. Can you imagine what kind of a generational impact it would have if we kept $6 billion within our own indigenous economies, and how much growth we would have from that. And when I talk about representation versus power, a lot of that is tied to the fact that we are asked to be participants in a lot of programs and board seats and organizations, but it's basically without any real voice to be heard within those organizations. I honestly get so many offers to be part of this group or part of that group, and I'm like, well, what voice do I have within this organization? And they're like, well, we listen to you. And I'm like, oh, what does listening actually entail? Does it actually entail action after hearing what I have to say, and using that to formulate a plan to move forward to really bring representation within our organizations and include that Indigenous voice? I think that's so important because like there's a lot of tokenism and people being placed in positions where they don't really have a voice in that organization. So like um, indigenous development associations or all these indigenous relations programs, that's why I question a lot of them and say, what is their true value? If you're basically just there to spread the word for your company and not really provide that voice back to your company to say, okay, here's what I heard back from the community. Can we change our process? If you don't have that ability, then what's the point of being in that role? Yeah.
Beautifully said. Thank you. And we have one more practical question for you.
Sure.
Once issues are found during the inspection with like mold, sewage, backup, etc., how is it being handled? What are the next steps after all the deficiencies are found?
That's where we that's where we use the consultation process to help determine what the community's capabilities are. Like if the community has the capabilities to address these issues, then we provide it into the inspection report and say, okay, here's the issues. What can be addressed through the community? What's a health and safety factor? What can be addressed through energy rebates? What could be addressed through funding sources? Those are the things we help kind of put those into the right box and address the right issues, right? Because the other part of the inspection process is it answers four important questions. Because one, it answers the question whether this house should even be repaired or condemned. Because once you pass that 50% threshold in terms of cost versus rebuild, then you have to make a decision whether you're pouring money into a black hole or not. So we answer that question because we can tell you, okay, this is what it costs to repair. Now you have to make that decision whether you have to repair it or tear it down and rebuild it. The other thing is, which box does this house fit into? Is it just a strictly renovation process where it's interior renovations, kitchen cabinets and stuff like that? Is it a health and safety? Is it energy programming where you can actually do the exterior and access rebate programming to offset all those costs, do attic insulation, windows and doors, which the whole are heavily rebatable, right? Or is it a combination of two, renovation and interior renovation and exterior rebate and energy savings? Or is it just a one-off project? Like the house is in really good shape, but it's just the roof needs repair. And then now you can chase funding so you can approach CMHC and say, hey, CMHC, can you fund us to replace 5 roofs? It's just a one-off project, right? But we will put all the ducks in a row so you can actually approach CMHC and say, and they'll say, hey, what's the cost? And you can give them the cost and say, here's your cost. Here's the scopes of work and here's what's needed.
I think all this talk about rebates has everybody's ears perking, and there's interest of, is there like a list of rebates where communities may qualify? And if so, where can it be viewed? Is there some type of resource on these rebates?
Yeah, and it's different across the provinces. It's different with the Greener Zone program. Like BC has one of the most aggressive, most fulsome rebate program in Canada. Like they'll rebate up to like $9,500 for windows and doors. They'll do exterior cladding rebate, and they'll pay for panel upgrades for $5,000. They'll pay for fuel pump switching. There's just a massive rebates through their program. And I sit with the provincial advisory panel with BC Hydro and Forest BC, and we're trying to use the information that we get from this rebate program and provide it to other provinces and say, hey, look, this is what BC is doing, and this is how impactful it is, and this is how much it's saving. Like, one of the big things we accomplished with BC Hydro and Forest BC under this advisory panel last year was we told them that there's a lot of small communities out there that want to do rebating, but they can't afford the upfront costs of ordering the material and then submitting receipts after the fact. So what they did this year was they actually allowed for a 50% mobilization payment to actually kickstart that whole process. And it's had a really big impact. And so you see more smaller communities jumping in and doing that. But for each community we work with, we research what's available in terms of those rebates and try to build out as much as we can, because like every dollar counts. So we're trying to source as much as we can for every community.
Well, thank you, Stan. I'm going to give a moment. Is there any other questions from the audience that you would like to ask? Feel free to unmute yourself if that's an easier way to ask as well. Well, wonderful. Stan, thank you so much. We have a deep, deep, deep gratitude for all that you've shared with us today, both about your initiative and, of course, about some of those really important subjects that we've been able to talk about. We hope nothing but the prospect of prosperity for you, and hopefully you can come on and give us an update about Inspector in a Box 3.0 a few years from now as the program continues to gain traction across communities in Turtle Island, both Canada and beyond. So with that, Stan, and for everybody who's joined us today, thank you so much for taking that time, and join us next month for our next innovation speaker series on irrigation and potato farming. And so we're looking at irrigation and agriculture with Emily Cowan. You can find more on our website, www.atlanticcanadaclimatenetwork.ca/innovation and speaker series. Thank you all for joining us today. Wishing you nothing but the best.